So our next witness will be Christine Owens, and after that will be William Barrett. Good morning.
Good morning. Morning, Madam Chair and other members of the board. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today about the NLRB's proposed rule changes regarding representation elections, and we will expand on these comments, on these remarks in the comments that we submit next month. The National Employment Law Project is a nonpartisan organization that for 40 years has engaged in research, education, litigation support, and policy advocacy to promote the workplace rights and economic interest of low-wage and unemployed workers. The overwhelming majority of workers for whom we advocate are women, people of color, and immigrants, and most are not represented by unions. While others have addressed the particulars of the proposed rule changes, my remarks will focus on the low-wage workforce with the goal of highlighting why two particular changes the rules contemplate. First, streamlining the election process by eliminating most pre-election hearings, and second, providing greater access to information more quickly to enhance communication among workers and between workers and the union that they seek to be represented by, why these changes are of such value to low-wage workers. Low-wage workers make up approximately 25% of the workforce. Low-wage jobs are among those projected to grow the most throughout this decade, and to date in this recovery, the bulk of job growth has been in low-wage occupations. Union representation provides a powerful economic salve for low-wage workers, providing a 21% pay differential for unionized low-wage workers in the bottom 10% of the wage scale compared to their non-union counterparts. Among the demographic groups that comprise the low-wage workforce, which again is mostly women, African Americans, Latinos, and immigrants, the union premium in the form of higher wages and greater access to health insurance and employer-provided retirement coverage is significantly. Among these groups, in the lowest paid 15 occupations, the wage premium for unionized workers is as much as 19.5%, and unionization increases the likelihood of employer-provided health coverage by up to 41%, and of employer-provided retirement savings by up to 29.2 percentage points. Low-wage workers represented by unions are also more likely to have access to a host of additional employee benefits, such as lengthy periods of paid leave, along with the basic due process rights that a contract provides, as well as representation and a collective voice for enforcing basic statutory rights, such as safe workplaces, fair pay, and non-discrimination. And that's particularly critical because agency resources, while they have increased over the last few years, are still inadequate to the task of reaching the workplaces in the American economy. It's also critical because, as I'll report in a second, low-wage workers experience particularly high rates of violations of workplace protections, and low-wage workers have much greater job insecurity, so a union contract provides greater security. Notwithstanding the large share of the workforce and the growing share of the workforce comprised by low-wage workers, their representation by unions is inadequate. Fewer than 8% of workers in sales and office jobs are unionized or are represented by unions, and fewer than 12% in service occupations are represented by unions, compared with 17% in construction and manufacturing and more than 20% of professionals. There are multiple reasons why low-wage workers are underrepresented by unions, not the least of which is their economic vulnerability and perceived disposability. It makes them less able and less willing to endure the lengthy process, the uncertainty, the risk of retaliation, and the added pressures associated with a union organizing drive. Low-wage workers are extremely economically tenuous. 1/4 are the sole source of earnings for their households. Another third provide more than half of their household incomes. Half of low-wage workers live in low-income families. Compounding and associated with this economic vulnerability, low-wage labor market is characterized by considerable churning and high rates of turnover. Roughly 60% of low-wage workers work in firms where annual turnover is 50%. Low-wage workers are easily displaced and easily replaced, making job retention a challenge and an urgent need. Low-wage workers experience high rates of workplace violations. In a survey that NELP conducted with university researchers in New York, Chicago, and LA in 2008, we found that 1/4 of the surveyed low-wage workers had not been paid legally required minimum wages in the preceding weeks, and of those who had worked overtime, 3/4 did not get overtime pay. Among the 12% of workers who had experienced workplace injuries, only 8% filed for workers' compensation, and of those, half experienced some sort of adverse employer reaction in response to their filing. This same survey found that among workers who did complain or try to form a union, 43% were subjected to retaliation, and significantly, a large share of surveyed workers, 20%, who experienced a serious workplace violation, such as dangerous working conditions or sub-minimum wage pay, did not pursue complaints or attempt to form a union because of fear of retaliation or a perception that doing so was futile. This economic vulnerability of low-wage workers, the urgency of getting and keeping jobs, their high rates of turnover, their awareness that employers can easily replace them, the high frequency of violations and retaliation, the known violations that occurred during union organizing efforts, combined to dampen the tenacity required for workers to see the process through to exercise their right to organize. As Professor Jennifer Gordon has written in the context of low-wage immigrant workers, slow processing, limited enforcement powers, and complex bureaucracies discourage the assertion of workplace rights by low-wage workers. We believe that the proposed rule changes overall will create more uniformity and certainty for all parties and provide a fairer, more efficient, and more transparent process. This is crucial to the right of all workers, and particularly low-wage workers, to exercise their right to organize and bargain collectively. Thank you.
Thank you very much for contributing your perspective. Does anyone have a question? No. Well, thank you for being with us today.